if you lose a war, take your enemy to court. That's what seems to have happened in the case of Armenia versus Azerbaijan and the countersuit Azerbaijan versus Armenia over their disputed territory of Nagorno-Karabakh. War by other means? It's certainly a good time to be a lawyer. Join me, Jan Darasz, for How We Got Here.
After months of violent clashes and fighting, Armenia and Azerbaijan may be forced to solve their problems in court. In a recent speech, Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev said that Armenia must change its constitution in order for a peace treaty between the two countries to be signed. Aliyev reiterated his earlier claims that the Armenian constitution contains territorial claims against Azerbaijan. Despite repeated and categorical statements by the Armenian authorities, Armenia holds no such claims against any neighbour. In fact, the Armenian constitution does not contain any statements that could support this position. However, it does refer to the Armenian Declaration of Independence, which mentions the joint resolution of the Supreme Council of the Armenian SSR and the National Council of Nagorno-Karabakh of December 1, 1989, on the unification of the Armenian SSR and Nagorno-Karabakh. Armenian Foreign Minister Ararat Mirzoyan said in the parliament that the constitution of Armenia and Azerbaijan should not constitute a legal obstacle to the establishment of lasting long-term peace. He said that the issue of amending the Armenian or Azerbaijani constitutions is not being discussed as part of the peace negotiations. The Armenian Foreign Minister stressed that the draft peace agreement that is being worked out in Baku contains provisions abandoning mutual territorial claims. Despite the difficulties, the Armenian Foreign Ministry has announced its readiness to conduct constructive and intensive work on the terms of the peace treaty so it can be signed within a month.
My guest today is Dr. Konrad Zasztowt from the Faculty of Oriental Studies at the University of Warsaw. Welcome to the programme.
Hello.
Great to have you. Before we get into the legal battle between Azerbaijan and Armenia, can you outline for us their conflicts on the battlefield, the proper battlefield, up till now? They've just fought in 2023, the third war, is it?
Yeah, so after the second Karabakh war, so I mean 2020, we had this situation that Armenians still lived in Nagorno-Karabakh, but they were already surrounded by the territory controlled by Azerbaijan, because the goal of the war from the point of view of Azerbaijan was to regain its territory in Nagorno-Karabakh region, which from the point of view of international law always belonged to Azerbaijan, but Armenians were still there. After the one-day operation, I would call it, last year in September, the rest of the territory, so the capital of the region called Stepanakert in Armenian, Khankendi in Azerbaijani language, was also captured by Azerbaijani forces. And at that moment, the Armenian authorities, their local authorities, or you can call them separatist authorities, or Armenian Karabakh authorities, they decided to leave the region. I mean, not only the elite, but the whole population left the region. So
which numbered around how much?
More than 100,000 people left. So basically all the population, Armenian population, left the region. From what I heard recently, there are like 15 or something Armenians left living in this region now. So simply the region is empty now, because the Azerbaijani population, which used to live there before the first Karabakh war in 1990s, they are also not there, because it's a very difficult place to live now because of this legacy of the war, because of the landmines everywhere, because their houses were destroyed during the war activities. So basically, it's an empty region, Karabakh.
So it hasn't been filled by settlers from Azerbaijan?
No, not yet. So they are planning to reconstruct the region. There are very huge plans, investments. They already built a lot there, even airports. I think there are 2 airports now, just newly built airports, which is a little bit strange because nobody lives there, so for whom are those airports? But yeah, the plans are very ambitious, and some of the buildings are already reconstructed. I mean, the historical buildings, because from the Azerbaijani point of view, the most important town in this region, Nagorno-Karabakh, is not Khankendi, the capital, but Shusha, which is the former capital, which used to be capital of, in 18th century, the capital of Karabakh Khanate, which was something like one of the first Azerbaijani states. So it's very important from the cultural point of view for the Azeri side.
You mentioned the historical and emotional ties that the Azeris have to this region. What about on the other side, the Armenian claims to Nagorno-Karabakh? Are they as ancient?
Yes, sure. So Armenians call the Nagorno-Karabakh region with its ancient name Artsakh, which refers to one of the provinces of a huge kingdom of Armenia, which existed in ancient period and in an early medieval period. So one can ask, okay, they were there in 11th century, but what about modern period? Yes. Is there a modern legacy of Armenian existence there? So yes, of course, the Armenians were majority in Karabakh during the Soviet period and even before during the Tsarist Russia period. Armenians were always there, but in 19th century the number of Armenians increased because of the Tsarist policy, because they were inviting Armenians from neighboring countries like Persia, like Ottoman Empire, where the Armenians they always had some problems because of there were Christians living in Muslim empires, so they were wishing to move to the Russian Empire, which was perceived as a Christian empire. Yes, but that was at the cost of conflicts with this population which already lived in this Russian part, on this Russian part of Caucasus. So here I mean not only Azeris but also Georgians. So Armenians were settled there, and they were changing this demographic balance. In case of Karabakh, as I said, some Armenians lived there even before, but majority came later after this process of migration of Armenians from Persia and from Ottoman Turkey.
So they fought their third war. Most of the Armenian population has been expelled. Why go to court over it? This late last year. What's the rationale for taking another sovereign state, 2 sovereign states, fighting in an international UN court?
I think it's logical, and it's actually good, because if you have such a dispute, international dispute between 2 state actors, but also non-state actors, because if we speak about Armenians from Karabakh, this is more about interest of individuals who used to live there, who homes, houses, everything there, everything they left there. It's natural that this kind of dispute should be settled in a civilized way in a proper institution. So I guess it's a good process, but of course at the moment it's used by for sake of propaganda by both sides actually. Yeah. So for Armenians try to gain attention to the problem of those Armenians from Karabakh who left Karabakh, and Azerbaijanis try to also to show their point of view, and we have to remember that during this first Karabakh war, I mean early 1990s, several 100,000 of Azeris had to leave the region as well. So there is pain, there is those memories on both sides.
Like a replay of the Yugoslavian situation.
Exactly, it can be compared to Bosnia or Yugoslavian war. So I think yes, this kind of institution may serve may facilitate actually solving these issues, but these are very complicated issues, and I don't expect that they will be solved soon.
Right, yes, it's not a no legal process is a short one. What's Russia's role in this? You mentioned the demographic manipulation in the area in the Tsarist period, 19th century, and then later on, I presume, in the Soviet period. It still has its peacekeeping force within the area?
No, the Russians, they already left Nagorno-Karabakh. It was actually a bizarre situation because after the local Armenians left Nagorno-Karabakh in September or October last year, still Russians were there for several months. So their goal, this so-called peacekeeping mission, Russian peacekeeping mission's goal was to protect Armenians. So without Armenians, it was no sense to have them there. And of course, Azerbaijan was very happy to get rid of Russian soldiers from their soil.
But Russia is does still have this interest in meddling.
Yes, but Russia still shows some interest in spite of this. In spite of the fact that Russia is mostly concentrated on the war in Ukraine, but still it tries to have some impact on situation on the ground there in Azerbaijan, in Karabakh region. So recently they declared that they will open Russian consulate in the capital of Nagorno-Karabakh, in Khankendi, in Armenian Stepanakert, which is also something very strange because, as I mentioned, the city is empty. It's like a ghost town at the moment. So I don't know for whom they are planning to serve their diplomatic service there in this empty city, but probably it's an attempt to have some impact on the situation there.
A final question to you: why should Western electorates? We understand that the governments have their policy again in that region. Why should the electorates care about what happens in the wars between two fairly small countries far away?
Why it's important from the point of the West, the European Union? I think we have to do everything what we can to not to happen such conflicts as in Yugoslavia, as it happened in Nagorno-Karabakh. Actually, it was the failure of diplomacy, failure of Minsk Group, OSCE Minsk Group, but still the West should be there, the European Union should be there, and it is there actually because there's a monitoring mission in Armenia, on the border between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and I think it's a good development. Actually, if we don't do something now, we will have to do more later.
Yes. Dr. Zasztowt, thank you very much for coming on to the programme.
Thank you.
Great to have you. And that's all we have time for today. Join us next time, please, on How We Got Here.